back kind of into my vision again, that he gave me the strength to finally end things with this other man. And then I had kind of made this decision of, things have been, they're not great with my husband, but they're better. We don't have like this wonderful relationship, but it was much better than it was. I didn't want that to be over. I decided I was just going to pretend like it didn't happen and sort of move on with my life with my husband and let that be something that happened in the past. And that worked for me for about 6 weeks. And then I just was overcome with this, he doesn't see who I really am. He's loving this pretend version of me. And I needed to know that he would love and accept me for me, or that he wasn't. And I just needed to know. And so we were at a small group gathering, and I had this just tug on my spirit that we needed to leave. I needed to go home and tell him right then. So we did. I stood up and I said, I'm really sorry, we got to go. Went home. Very uncomfortable ride home. My husband had no idea what was going on. Got home and I told him. And it was the scariest thing I've ever done. Even scarier than this. And he was upset, as he should be, angry, as he should be, but he calmly just said, I need some time to think. I'm going for a drive. I'm going to call my brother, and I'm going to talk to him. And I said, okay. And I sat on the couch, and I waited. And I was a ball of nerves. I had no idea what he was going to come back with. I didn't know if my marriage was about to be over. I didn't know what was going to happen. And I just prayed and waited. And he came home about 45 minutes later and came up the steps. And I'll never forget the way he just walked over to me, and he put his arms around me, and he gave me a hug. And he said, I'm choosing to forgive you. I don't feel like forgiving you, but I'm choosing to forgive you. And we sat down on the couch, and in that moment, I describe it as that he was Jesus with skin on to me in that moment, just expressing such a willingness to forgive despite the very obvious and difficult hurt that I had just shared with him that I had been doing. I had been lying to him. I had been, all of the things that I shared, plus more that I didn't have time to share. But he just gave me a hug and said he forgave me. And that was such a defining moment for me personally in my life, and such a defining moment for me in my marriage, and such an important point of the very beginning journey of rebuilding trust and rebuilding a new relationship together. We spent a couple hours talking about our relationship and sort of putting a stake in the ground of, from here on, this day marks a new, different relationship that we're going to have. No lies, rebuilding trust, everything like that. And it has not been easy. I didn't say that in the first service, but it was a process. It was difficult. But I feel like God was what brought us together in that moment. And I think that the humility of both of our hearts, combined with God's redeeming love and forgiveness and grace, is what sort of built that foundation in that moment for us. And
so you can say in a very real way you experienced God.
Yeah.
And you experienced it. I mean, he can come down and give us a sense of peace and things. But it was through the forgiving act of your husband that you experienced the love of Christ. And I think maybe we're not all struggling with our marriage here today, but are looking for a take-home. And I think that's a great take-home is the power of forgiveness in relationships, that as we forgive, as Jesus has forgiven us on the cross, we can forgive others. And it is, they can actually see and experience Jesus through our actions. And I think that's a very key part about relationships.
Yeah, and the trickle-down effect that has on people's lives, me experiencing that and now kind of the ministry that God has given me and the lives that have been touched through that forgiveness my husband gave me. I mean, it's God and my husband, I feel like, are why I'm doing what I'm doing.
Well, that sounds like a good segue into the next section. Speaking of your
Yeah.
ministry, it was about a year ago that you finished, well, so you went back to school.
Yes.
So after your marriage was repaired and you had this passion and desire to help others, and so you went back to school, got your master's in counseling or
Marriage and family therapy.
marriage and
Yep.
And so now you have renovation counseling going right here in Circle Pines.
Yep.
Now, is this totally secular counseling, or because the way God works so powerfully in your life, do you bring God into your counseling experience?
Yeah, I would say God is always a part of my counseling experience, just because I can't separate myself from Him and the work He's done in my life. But that said, I see people who are people of faith, people who identify as atheists or anything in between, and so I'm able to work with anyone wherever they're at spiritually. If they're in a place where I was, where they're angry with God, but maybe they're a little more willing to admit it, that's fine. If there are people who are wanting to invite God into their marriage and the healing process, I love being able to incorporate that.
Would you say it's more successful?
Yeah. I have seen that. I suspected that before, but in my work, I have seen that over and over again, and I've just been
So you
kind
can
of
actually
floored by
see
that.
God
Yeah.
working in
God's
these
power, yeah.
these lives, His power.
When He's invited in.
It's
Yeah.
real.
Yeah.
That's just really, really fantastic. Well, great. So you've seen it in their lives. And I presume, though, you do have a lot of tools that you can use. I mean, someone can always say, well, I turned my life over to Christ and just wait for God to overwhelm them with peace. But,
Right.
it is something that you still
Yeah.
have to work at.
Oh, yeah.
You can provide some tools. And along with those tools, you can provide hope.
Yes.
You were pretty hopeless at one point in your marriage.
Yeah.
And yet you were able to see that turnaround. Some people, they have a desire to repair the marriage, but they lose hope, whether it be for just that keep going into old habits and keep stumbling back. But do you run across people who have just totally lost their desire for the marriage? They have no desire to work at it. They're just done. They have no desire to be with each other. They have no feelings for each other. Can you see situations where that loss of desire as well as the loss of hope is gone, and that can God actually bring back that desire to be with each other and to love and care for each other like they had before?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say I lost some of the desire in my marriage and have seen it myself and have seen that desire grow over time with my husband. And I've seen it over and over with other couples. I see couples who are literally on the brink of divorce, where maybe one or both of them are coming to counseling as kind of that last ditch, like I tried everything, like, see, I went to counseling.
And so you
kind
would
of
recommend,
place.
even if the spouse doesn't want to come, there's still a benefit to
Yeah.
come alone.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and so even in those situations, I've seen some couples, and granted, not all, people are at different spots and there are different journeys that people take, but I've definitely seen people go from no hope. Those couples, I'll tell them that I'll hold the hope for them until they're ready to take it. But yeah, I've seen marriages completely do a 180 with the support of counseling and working through, Counseling is about working through the issues and finding forgiveness and healing through that process. It's not a magic wand I wave and it's suddenly, better. It takes a lot of work and effort, but I've seen it over and over.
How soon should someone consider counseling? I know there's a stigma about counseling, and if I go to a counselor, people are going to look down upon me. And I would say Good Shepherd is actually a very loving and caring congregation. If they found someone was going to counseling, they probably would wrap their arms around them and support them 100%. But number one, we don't communicate. I just met you a week ago, but
Right.
if anyone comes to you, I'm not going to know it. So someone
Right.
can come to you in privacy.
Yeah.
But how early should they come? I mean,
Yeah.
do you wait until it's really on the rocks before you seek help, or?
Well, unfortunately, that's what a lot of people do. A lot of people do wait until it's sort of that, it costs money. It's intense. It's a lot of work. It's, people I think kind of limp along for as long as they can, and then will seek out counseling. But I'm seeing more and more people coming earlier. I'm not going to obviously share any confidential information, but I have one couple I've been seeing that their marriage is great in a lot of areas, and there's one specific issue that they're coming for help with. And that issue is, there's a lot of work to do there. But they have told me that they plan on it being a long-term arrangement where even once they've worked through this issue and they're in a good spot in their marriage, that they're planning on coming, whether it's once a month or quarterly or something, but just as a means of kind of keeping their marriage a focus. Preventative care. Yes, exactly.
There is that analogy to
Yeah.
healthcare, but yeah. Well,
Right.
actually, it is a form of mental wellness and
Yeah.
health and spiritual as well.
Right.
We did read a Bible verse that said that God did allow divorce in the case of infidelity. And in your case, infidelity was involved, but yet you were able to repair that. But technically, in a moral sense, you could have gone to there could have been a divorce, and it would have been. How do you treat that in your counseling? I mean, we're a situation where
Sure.
maybe there is some moral justification. Okay, there's infidelity, but obviously you still try to encourage them to try to make it work.
Yeah. So
And
ultimately,
I think that was the heart of what Jesus said today,
Yeah.
too. He said we allowed it because of sinful human nature, but the intent was still to stay together.
right. So first, I'll just say, for me, I have seen how God has really knit together, and our relationship is so, it just has such a strong foundation now because of all the hardship we went through. That whenever you go through something hard with someone, I don't know if you guys have experienced this too, but it just can solidify things. You learn things about yourself, you learn things about the other person, and you can
I think
really
most people
grow.
would agree that we've all had arguments and fights, and,
Yeah.
and when you forgive and come back, it comes stronger than when
Right.
you first went
Yeah.
through.
So I think there's first of all a lot of hope for. I don't think it's the exception to the rule that someone can come back after an affair. I'll just say that first of all. But to answer your question, it's ultimately up to the couple to decide what they want to do. But I definitely will. I said to Pastor Ted before, I'm pro-marriage, but I'm not anti-divorce. If there's an opportunity for healing to happen and there's a willingness for both people to work on the relationship and move forward towards this stronger, healthier, a lot of times an affair can be a wake-up call, and it can be just what is needed for, not that I would ever prescribe that someone do that, but
Do you do counseling for those who have been through a divorce, too?
I do.
Yep.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
that healing process.
Right, exactly. Healing is important, and to what you said, how it kind of goes forward in families, so the children, different things, but people who are divorced being able to find that peace and healing, and be able to talk about these kinds of things with their children, and about commitment, and about expectations or moral
Yeah.
things, and some
Great.
of those
Oh,
things.
good. Can we close in prayer?
Yeah.
Well, dear Lord, I was just so thankful that your healing touch came into Rachel's life, that you brought her back into fellowship within her congregation, and it was through the word being spoken and the fellowship and the accountability that the Spirit began to work on her heart. and the power of your word and the power of your love, the impact that it has to change lives, and what a beautiful life that this was changed. And Lord, I also thank you for Rachel's willingness to come and to share this in front, to bare her soul, and to share this with a large congregation. I know not an easy thing to do, but what blessings that it can have for others who may be struggling. And Lord, I pray for her ministry, that your grace may work through her mightily as she works with troubled marriages. And so I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, let's, I think, appropriate to let's thank Rachel for